Story 1. I worked in a kitchen where people have been fired for cell phone use. I personally do not use my phone at work at all. The boss's daughter was on her phone all the time. After good employees were fired for the same action, I started loudly calling her out every time she was on her phone. I was fired this week because of my rude actions. Story 2. All the actions that members of Congress are allowed to do, but if done by a regular citizen, would lead to jail. Insider trading, for example. Story 3. When a bully picks on someone, it often goes on for months with no one stepping in until the victim snaps. But then, when the victim finally snaps and retaliates against the bully, suddenly everyone comes out of the woodwork to intervene and admonish the victim for retaliating instead of doing the more civilized thing and asking an authority figure for help. In my opinion, the bully should not have behaved that way, and everything that happens afterward is primarily on them. The victim should do whatever is necessary to stop the harassment. Period. Even violence or humiliation if that is what it takes. No one will ever convince me otherwise. If you sat on the sidelines before, you do not get to suddenly take the moral high ground now. For whatever reason, we seem to have higher expectations for victims than we do bullies, and I do not understand why. I do not expect patience, maturity, compassion, or professionalism from the victim. This applies to both physical and verbal altercations. Of course, we should be teaching people to ask for help, but we should primarily teach them not to bully and insult others. No means no, and stop means stop. Period. Story 4. Playing video games for a couple of hours is undesirable and a waste of time, but watching a film or several episodes of a television show is considered socially acceptable and a good way to relax. Story 5. White-collar crimes and blue-collar crimes that do equivalent harm are not treated the same with respect to punishment. A blue-collar criminal who robs a bank for $1 million receives 10 years in jail. A white-collar criminal who embezzles $1 million from a group of pensioners receives 1 year in jail and a fine. A blue-collar criminal who poisons an entire family receives life in prison. A white-collar criminal who ignores safety regulations in food or medicine, resulting in an entire family being poisoned, receives a fine. Punishment should be based on harm done, not the method. Story 6. Places like doctors' offices and salons charge fees for no-shows or rescheduling and cancellations within 24 hours, but they do not apply the same policies in return. Story 7. When it comes to businesses, everyone says, it is a company. It is their job to make money as efficiently as possible. This is treated as smart and effective. However, when employees want to make as much money as possible for the least amount of work, they are considered lazy and incompetent. Everyone acts as if it is a crime for a company to make less profit than it did the previous year, even though the company is still making more money than it is spending. Employees should not demand more money because the business would not make as much profit. Story 8. These are opposite sides of the same coin, but disabled child? Aw, how cute. Such a brave little warrior. So strong. Such a hero in the face of a truly miserable existence. This video of a boy learning how to ask the deaf girl to prom in American Sign Language is so inspirational. I'm not crying, you're crying. He's such a good person, so inclusive. He was definitely raised right. Disabled adult? This grown man I know started a fundraiser to have a ramp installed in front of his house. I'm not wasting my hard-earned money on something he should be able to do himself. He doesn't even need a wheelchair. I saw him walking perfectly fine 3 years ago. What a joke. People like him need to figure out how to adapt instead of demanding that the rest of us cater to them. I did it. When I was on crutches for 2 weeks, I used the stairs because I'm not some lazy person. Story 9. I work nights. I dislike that all the programs my labor union provides start in the morning. Want to learn more about leadership in the labor union? It starts at 8 o'clock in the morning. Want to learn more about negotiations? Sorry, it starts at 8 o'clock in the morning. Do you have a complaint? Call me after 9 o'clock in the morning. I pay the same rates as the day crew and want nighttime programs. Story 10. As a child sexual abuse survivor, the way media covers it when the aggressor is female. Story 11. Overprotective father-to-daughter trope. The irresponsible sons can go around and cause trouble, but do not you dare lay a finger on the daughter. Story 12. As a father, taking my children to the park or any other activity is not babysitting. It is me taking care of and spending time with my children. Story 13. Many people in this thread have examples of the unfair double standards involved with gender. So I am just going to paint in broad strokes and say gender issues. Story 14. If a girl sleeps with 10 men, she is labeled negatively, but if I do the same, I am perceived differently. Story 15. Some guy yelled at me that I was driving a man car but can't supply a woman car. It's genuine confusion. What is a woman car? Story 16. Male sexual assault in show humorous. Female sexual assault in show terrible. Story 17. Do not want to answer the phone because you think it is rude when someone demands your immediate attention, but become angry if someone does not respond to your text within 3 seconds. Story 18. Society's view on most types of abuse. If you do this to your partner, it is domestic violence. If you do this to your child, it is considered responsible parenting. Story 19. Police and politicians are above the laws that they create and enforce. Story 20. Wives can assault their husbands and may claim to be victims when the husband defends himself. Story 21. In movies and shows, there are many examples of a woman being angry at a man, so she slaps him across the face, and they move on as if it never happened. Moreover, it is always the man's fault that he got slapped because he made the woman angry. Story 22. An unattractive man being with an attractive woman is seen as winning, but an unattractive woman being with an attractive man is seen as using him. Story 23. The government can owe you money and take as long as they want to pay you. However, if you owe them, they want payment as soon as possible. Story 24. The more attractive a woman is, the more men desire her regardless of her other qualities. The wealthier a man is, the more women desire him regardless of his other qualities. Story 25. Medication for mental health versus physical health. If you are feeling depressed, you do not just need to go outside. Please continue taking your prescribed blood thinners for your clotting problem. It is important to follow your healthcare provider's advice. Story 26. Abstain from sex, you are prudish. Have too much sex, you are promiscuous. Story 27. There seem to be many plus-sized women who think they can insult skinny women just because they were insulted by another skinny woman in the past. There is no sense in taking your insecurities out on someone who has nothing to do with it. Story 28. When women are constantly told they are too emotional, it implies they are inferior. Yet, when men lose a video game and break things in a screaming rage, it is not considered too emotional. Rage is, in fact, an emotion. Story 29. People who speed but complain about others breaking the law on the road are foolish. Story 30. Female child predators are not receiving the same punishment as male predators. Recently, I read about a middle school teacher who was caught sending explicit images to a student. The case ended with a plea deal, and she was given a deferred 2-year sentence along with 2 years of probation, without requirements to be on the sex offender registration. She lost her job, but it seems a male predator committing the same offense would likely receive a harsher punishment. Story 31. The expectation that men should be stoic and never show emotion creates a lose-lose situation. When they do open up, they are often told to man up or not be so sensitive. Story 32. Talking about your weight insecurities, whether you are overweight, underweight, or healthy, is important. It feels like you are only allowed to be insecure or have body dysmorphia and actively talk about it if you are overweight. In reality, everyone should be able to express their frustrations or join support groups without being shamed by comparisons, such as, someone else has it worse. Story 33. My dad refers to all women as girls, regardless of their age. However, if you refer to him or any other male over the age of 18 as a boy, he becomes very upset. He is not the only one. Why is it acceptable to refer to me, a professional woman in my 40s, as a girl? Story 34. The blue wall of silence. If one police officer sees or knows about another police officer doing something illegal, they should speak up, not protect that corrupt officer. Story 35. Women wearing makeup. Anti-wrinkle commercials are always targeted toward women. Story 36. Women touching men on their arms, chest, hair, even slapping buttocks without repercussions. Really, stop. Story 37. An unattractive man does something which appears unsettling. An attractive man performs the same action, and it is perceived as appealing. Story 38. Women can wear shorter skirts or capri pants in the summer for work. Men should wear a full suit or pants only. Story 39. Men are assertive leaders. Women are demanding. Story 40. Men can get vasectomies relatively easily, but women asking for tubal ligation are often told, "Oh, you might change your mind," or "You are too young to make that decision." For that matter, choosing to be child-free is generally more accepted in men than in women. Story 41. Young girl is sexually assaulted by a grown man. That's awful. I'm so sorry. Young boy is sexually assaulted by a grown woman. Hell yeah. Dude, score. Story 42. Women can physically assault men in public, but if he tries to defend himself or strike back, then he is labeled the aggressor. No, that is called equal rights. If a woman assaults a man, I expect him to respond with an open hand, using half his strength, to slap her once and then walk away. How dare you condone violence against women? I grew up abused by my mother, older sister, and grandmother. A single slap with half one's strength followed by walking away sets the standard. Hit me, that's okay. But I will strike back with restraint because it is not your fault that nobody raised you properly. A man who does not defend himself when a woman is attacking him only does so out of fear of becoming the abuser. The case of Depp versus Heard is an example of this. Normal women, even those who are abused, do not behave erratically next to their partners hoping for the partner to condone it. That behavior is biological warfare and a sign of a psychopath. Story 43. Two things I find highly hypocritical. It is considered perfectly normal and reasonable to want a tall man, to ask a man his height, or even to shame or talk down to men for their height, something that can be a source of insecurity they have no control over. However, wanting a slim woman, while widely considered normal, can already get you labeled as superficial. Asking a woman her weight is considered rude and off-limits, and shaming a woman for her weight or talking down to her because of it is rightfully seen as horrendously insensitive. In this case, it is a source of insecurity they technically have control over. My stance here: you can have preferences, but do not make it all about them. If it is a deal breaker for you, rather than hitting a person where they might be insecure, it may be better to stay silent in that regard and separate amicably. Judging or talking about penises and ridiculing them for their size is prevalent, widely tolerated, and often considered funny or banter rather than offensive. Judging or talking about vaginas and ridiculing them for their size or form is considered perverted, rude, and offensive most of the time. My stance: just do not make fun of people, especially not about something they cannot change. If you make fun of your own penis, vagina, or breasts, be my guest, but be more considerate toward others. There are exceptions to both of my examples, but for the most part, particularly online and in media, they are accurate. Story 44. The people demanding religious freedom the loudest are the same ones putting laws in place to ensure everyone abides by their religion. Story 45. Children are treated like dogs, and dogs are treated like children. Story 46. Religious people hold their own religion to a completely different standard than everyone else's. For example, a Christian calling out the Quran for inconsistencies but ignoring them in the Bible. Story 47. Woman playing with children. She is great with children. Man playing with children. Be careful, he might be untrustworthy. Story 48. A woman hits a man for no reason. If he defends himself and hits her, it is considered his fault. Story 49. An attractive person flirting is flattering, but an unattractive person flirting is sexual harassment. Story 50. Women are allowed to tell a man to be a man, but men cannot tell women to be a woman. Story 51. When a church instructs others to be like Jesus and give to the poor but then sits on $265 billion for a rainy day. Story 52. I am fully on board with the Me Too movement and support holding people accountable for terrible behavior. However, it is not acceptable when women grab me or my friends at a bar. Perpetrators should be punished equally. I have experienced this, and the way it is often dismissed is unacceptable. Story 53. Girls will hit you and call you coward for walking away. Story 54. Religious people are allowed to be critical and mocking of anyone they like. However, if an atheist does the same, they are accused of persecution. Story 55. Her. How tall are you? Me. How much do you weigh? Her. Why does my weight matter? Me. Why does my height matter? Story 56. Single mothers are often blamed for everything from the federal debt to the crime rate. They are called used or damaged goods and considered undateable. There are lengthy discussions about why and how single mothers are damaging society and why fathers should automatically be given custody, even though most men do not want it. However, there are no negative social repercussions for men who completely abandon their own children, none at all. Single fathers are praised as heroes and given a great deal of support, even if they only have custody every other weekend or were abusive spouses, which is often why their marriages ended. Story 57. Every female partner I have had says they want a man to be open and vulnerable. Once I act that way, it is used against me. They leave me for a real man, or I am treated as if I am incapable. Every man I know has the same experience. Story 58. No one will love a person who does not love themselves. That is not true. Those are the people who need love the most. When I get out of here, I am going after whoever made that rule. I will slay a god. Story 59. Women get mad at men and expect an apology. Men get mad at women, and the woman expects an apology from the man. Story 60. Men with less muscle are not seen as feminine, but women who work out a lot and become muscular are often mocked with comments like, "Why are you trying to be a man? Excuse me, none of your business." Story 61. Women complaining about how much men are unpleasant, even when they choose to be around men. Not only are generalizations illogical, but when a man makes a generalization about women, he often faces strong opposition. Honestly, the entire gender conflict nonsense makes no sense to me and is frustrating. Story 62. Physical disabilities receive sympathy and help. Mental disabilities are often ignored and mocked. Story 63. When people say boys will be boys, but expect girls to be perfect little angels all the time. Story 64. What happened during the Olympics? News headlines focused on athletes' physical appearance, with zoomed-in pictures of bulges and possible visible panty lines everywhere. However, if anything similar were mentioned about the female athletes, it would be considered inappropriate. Story 65. A child gets harassed at school. Somehow, it is their fault for letting them do it, and they are told to just ignore their harassers. If an adult were to do the same to another adult, restraining orders and lawsuits would be filed. Story 66. Work harder and you will get promoted. They have been there longer than you. Your better productivity does not matter. Story 67. Women wearing flip-flops at the office and anything sleeveless. If I do it as a man, I am getting written up. Story 68. The rules for thee, not for me. I hear too many complaints from women about their men who they chose. Those same things they complain about are exactly the same things they are doing. When I point it out, their answer is always, "But it's different." I push back and say it's not. Then all of a sudden, I'm labeled negatively for calling out their hypocrisy. I believe that if you expect things from others, you need to be able to reciprocate those things as well. If not, it isn't fair to ask people to do things when you can't even do or uphold them yourself. Story 69. Thin girls are praised for eating a lot, wearing unfashionable outfits, and receiving much more grace than heavier girls. Story 70. If a woman hits you, no one will do anything. But if a man raises his voice a little, he is already considered a danger. If a father kills or rapes his children, he is an irredeemable monster. But if the mother does it, she is seen as a victim of depression, or people wonder what the children did to her. People think they are humanitarian just for putting a sweater on a dog. Yet they despise children and others, saying, "Animals are worth more than people." The United States always grants political asylum to corrupt individuals from other countries like Ecuador, but they act as enemies of Maduro when they give asylum to people who are just as corrupt as him. Story 71. The belief that men cannot be raped, abused, or sexually harassed by women is false. I know several men who have experienced this, and I have been touched without consent. Additionally, male body image issues and other insecurities are often overlooked or completely dismissed. Story 72. People want men to show sensitivity but do not give men the sensitivity they need. Story 73. The double standard with disabled people. Fully able person. Rowdy and loud and won't be quiet? Shout at them to shut up. But if I calmly tell a person with Down syndrome to please quiet down while they are shouting next to me, that is considered ableist. I have experienced this before, and not only is it annoying, but the guilt hurts. I am not telling her to be quiet because she is disabled. I am telling her to be quiet because she is being very loud and it hurts my head. Story 74. People who are against student loan forgiveness but are okay with everyone paying for everyone's health insurance often use the example college was a choice. You didn't have to go. Well, smoking cigarettes every day for 57 years was a choice too, one I did not make. Story 75. Men being more valued as they age and women becoming less visible with age. Story 76. When people who have never served in the military criticize someone's military service. Story 77. You need to respect your elders even if they disrespect you. Story 78. Civil asset forfeiture. We are not violating your rights by taking your money without due process because money itself does not have rights. Citizens United, you cannot stop us from influencing lawmakers because money is constitutionally protected speech. Story 79. Disrespectful people demand respect and claim that you are disrespecting them when you clearly are not. Story 80. That men can run around shirtless but women cannot. Shaking my head. Story 81. Of course, mothers do nothing wrong and fathers do everything wrong. Story 82. How boys and men are viewed as perverted and supposedly cannot think of women as friends, while at the same time two women can symbolically engage in intimate behavior and are just viewed as close friends. This happened to me last week during a summer camp where one of my co-team members said, "Every guy turn away for 10 seconds," so that she could change her top. There were me, her boyfriend, and 3 lesbians in the room. She could have gone to another room or told everybody to turn away. Last year, on another holiday camp, 2 openly lesbian co-team members engaged in intimate behavior in a visible place. Nobody talked about them being together or anything, partially because they said they were not. Things to be made clear. 1. All that happened occurred in places that the campgoers could not access. 2. I am not complaining that I was not involved in the changing, but that out of the 5 people around her, she was completely fine with people watching her who were attracted to her as long as they were the same gender, making it seem as if boys could not handle seeing breasts in a bra. Story 83. If a wife hits her husband, it is fine. If a husband hits his wife, it is abuse. They are both abuse. Story 84. A woman seen at a park with children is normal. If it is a man, everyone keeps an eye on him for anything suspicious he might do. Story 85. Police speeding and unlawfully killing people without consequences. Story 86. I have the right to make decisions about my body and my children's bodies. You do not have the right to choose what affects your body. Story 87. The sexism, such as saying Kamala Harris slept her way into her position, is unacceptable. If that were the case, did John F. Kennedy and Bill Clinton use their sexuality to gain power? This is a sick reference that, regardless of political preference, downplays all the hard work she has put into her life to reach this position. It is prevalent everywhere nowadays. Misogynistic behavior is unacceptable. Story 88. I honestly cannot think of an answer because double standards in general upset me. Story 89. Those who are paid to protect the public but enforce rules they do not follow themselves. Story 90. Woman hits man. Acceptable and even encouraged. Man hits back. Straight to jail. Female victim. Sympathy. Male victim. Ridicule. There are literally no shelters for male victims of abuse unless you are a child, and little to no support groups for male victims of domestic violence. Very few might believe you, and even fewer will actually help you. Do you want to know why more men take their own lives than women? This is why. Story 91. Equal pay should be achieved when the workload or jobs are equal. I support equal pay, but it must be earned fairly. Story 92. I have had female coworkers say inappropriate things, and I do not think anyone will ever call them out on it. Story 93. In the last couple of years, some stores have made it a priority to advertise and offer larger-sized clothing for bigger women. Some of these stores even have their own plus-size women's departments. The double standard is that the same stores do not offer big and tall sizes for men, so men who may enjoy grilling out a bit too much are limited in where they can get clothes. Story 94. When people care about animals but are okay with seeing innocent people die and suffer. Story 95. Condemning people who go against biblical teachings while living a non-biblical lifestyle. Story 96. Fathers are seen as babysitting when they are out somewhere with their children. Mothers are parenting. Story 97. Most of them are gender-based. Things that men are praised for, women are vilified for. Story 98. Dating applications enable you to have a height preference but not a weight preference. Story 99. If the dog sniffs a woman's backside, it is cute. If I do, I am considered a pervert. Whatever. Story 100. Supporters who back the police. Their leader is a convicted criminal. Story 101. Mother says little sister, who does not work, needs to rest on weekends, but men need to help around the house after working 45-hour weeks during the busy season. Story 102. Eating disorders that cause weight loss? Brave child, how can we help? You are just too tough. Eating disorders that cause weight gain? Lazy, weak-willed individual. Story 103. I have had more women threaten to hit me than men, and I am a man. If I threatened to hit them, I would be attacked by people defending them. Story 104. People of color can say anything they want about white people, and it is not racism. Story 105. Sex. No one bats an eye if men sleep around or talk about sex. When it's a woman, she's called a slut or told she's not wife material if she has casual, non-committal sex. On the other hand, she's labeled a prude if she wants to wait for commitment, or it's assumed she's testing or using a guy for dates if she doesn't sleep with him within the first few dates or weeks of casual dating without exclusivity. There's no right answer for women regarding their sex life. Is judged either way. I have a friend who is 27. She's never been with anyone but her high school sweetheart. People tell her all the time she's missing out, or they ask if she ever feels she missed out, or how do you know if you're even satisfied if you have no one else to compare him to? I literally heard a male friend ask her this when her partner wasn't with her at a wedding and we were all sitting together at a table. Story 106. A person can be terrible while alive, but as soon as they die suddenly, it is all sunshine and rainbows. A truck full of the worst teenagers killed themselves while driving drunk and high, without seatbelts, and blowing a stop sign when I was younger. These were bullies and generally terrible people. They died in a foolish way, doing everything wrong. Suddenly, it is all, oh, they were so young and good. We will always remember them as loving, kind people. Ma'am, your son blew a stop sign going 100 miles per hour while snorting cocaine off the steering wheel. Clearly, you made some mistakes with him. Story 107. The hypocrisy of prejudice. People are quick to point something out when a group they dislike is involved but remain silent when it concerns themselves. All men are cheaters. Even though some women do the same, all women are untrustworthy. And I hate them because I was in a toxic relationship with one. What if a woman is wary of men because she was abused and raped by an abusive boyfriend? I don't care. She's a bitch. Doesn't she know that not all men are the same? Or the Republicans who complain about someone having a pride sticker on their car because they are shoving their beliefs down our throats. Yet their cars are covered in political stickers. Other examples include societal expectations that have become normalized. Women showing emotion is fine and considered typical. If they don't, there is something wrong with them or they are a bitch. On the opposite side, Men are expected not to express themselves or open up. If they do, they are a wuss and need to toughen up. If a woman sleeps around or has a high sex drive, she is mocked and labeled a slut. A man who sleeps around is a stud. A man can be uninterested in having children and get a vasectomy. But God forbid a woman does not want kids and tries to get her tubes tied. When a mother is watching her child, she is seen as a good parent. But when a father spends time with his child, he is babysitting, as though he was forced to spend time with his own kid, picking and choosing who is acceptable to treat differently. Racism is wrong unless the person is white. Homophobia is wrong, but heterophobia is fine. Being sexist is wrong unless it is directed toward men. America is filled with idiots, racists, and murderers, but we conveniently ignore other countries committing horrible atrocities. Story 108. If you tell the truth on the online platform and it goes against the popular opinion. Story 109. The double standard the world has towards women. A female teacher had a sexual relationship with one of her students, and all she received was 30 days of probation. If it had been a male teacher who did the same, he would have served serious time. Story 110. Body hair is considered normal for one gender, but often viewed as gross and unhygienic for the other. I have never understood that. Story 111. How the political cult claiming they are trying to protect the children is led by and full of pedophiles. Story 112. Single and married enlisted treatment in the United States military. Story 113. If a man asks a woman to hang out, he is seen as trying to get with her. However, if a woman asks a man to hang out, it is just that. Story 114. Anytime I tell my children not to do something that I know I also do. Story 115. This just happened to me. When people make comments about how small and skinny I am, but will throw a fit when someone makes a comment about a larger person. I get it, some people think of it as a compliment, but it is not. I struggled for a year to gain as much weight as I had. Don't diminish that by saying, "Oh, you need to eat more." Just as I wouldn't say to someone, "Oh, you need to eat less." Story 116. I was told I should care for and protect my girlfriend. Yet when I asked what medication the facility she is in had given her, suddenly I am evil and her family hates me. I do not like that double standard very much. Story 117. In the summer, many workplace dress codes allow women to wear skirts but do not allow men to wear shorts. Story 118. Whenever a person of color protests a problem, it alarms conservative society. However, when a white person does the same, those conservatives come to their aid. Story 119. As a white woman, I have noticed that when a white woman makes a crude sexual joke, it is considered cute and funny. However, when a black woman does the same, she is called derogatory names in the comments. The same applies to music. I see Megan Thee Stallion being sexual and people say the nastiest things about her, but a white female singer can be equally sexual and it is accepted. Story 120. I get called honey and sweetie by women I do not know at work daily. I am pretty sure if I called any of them that, I would get a lecture. Granted, I live in the South and it is fairly commonplace, but it still feels like a double standard to me. Story 121. How some women and most teenage girls I have met will forgive a male friend for being honestly terrible, but as soon as their female friends make a mistake, sometimes even if it was a misunderstanding, those same girls blow it out of proportion. If I am talking more specifically about teenage girls, I see many let their male friends say the rudest things to them, and they defend them no matter what. This is not exclusive to attraction. I have seen lesbians do this too. Those same girls go feral if one of their female friends says or does something even a bit questionable. I have seen some literally attack, drop, bully, and harass their female friends for the smallest issues, sometimes even misunderstandings. These are extreme cases, but it still happens more subtly. Basically, what I am saying is they do not make their male friends take any accountability but leave no room for mistakes from their female friends. It is genuinely just internalized misogyny. I feel like I should blame the people who told young girls boys will be boys. Story 122. You should take the high road or be the bigger person. No, the high road was created by people taking the low road so it would be less congested. Edit. Also, Ableists who are in this metaphorical car work against the person on the low road. Story 123. I can insult you however I want. Freedom of speech. Anyone else gives them mild back sass. How dare you insult me? Disrespect. Story 124. My mother talks about how special it was when she was pregnant and could feel me kick. However, when I kick her now, she stops paying for my Netflix account. Story 125. When a religious person demands acceptance and respect while not showing the same for other religions. Story 126. When I worked in hourly positions, smokers received additional paid breaks. Story 127. Everything is rigged in favor of the rich. The judicial system is a prime example. They can afford lawyers to prolong a case until the other party gives up. Punishments might be an insignificant amount to them, and they find other ways to get around things. Story 128. Women can inflict physical abuse on a man with near impunity, but the reverse is not true. The double standard is so severe that people who witness a woman abusing a man will intervene on her behalf if he tries to defend himself. Story 129. How people are not told off for projecting their insecurities onto others. I am a quiet person, and as such I have unfortunately been in situations where the other person right away starts treating you poorly because they assume things about you just because you are quiet. What frustrates me most about that situation is that somehow I am the bad person for keeping to myself. I am the unreasonable one, the one who needs to change my behavior just to be acceptable to them. But somehow the person who is openly looking for a reason to dislike you is completely justified in doing exactly that. Story 130. Teenage females think it is perfectly fine to hit teenage males without consequences. Female teachers do not respond to this violence. Some more enlightened males do. He can take getting hit by a girl. What big guy can't take a hit from a little girl? A man can take a hit. If you cannot, you are not a man. Men do not report domestic violence because this tiny girl drew blood by hitting them with a high-heel shoe. Women end up really hurt with, I hit him first. I never thought he would hit me back. Just stop the violence. Story 131. I was at a state park with my 4-year-old. I was asked to keep it down because the motorcycle riders were having a memorial for fallen riders. You mean the group that says loud pipes save lives? Those people who have ruined many things want quiet for their event but disregard everyone else. I said that in my head and we moved on. Story 132. I want men who are tall, wealthy, muscular, handsome, mature, intelligent, understanding, and funny. Well, that's nice. But what kind of woman are you? What do you bring to the table? Not everyone is like this, of course. Story 133. Republicans refusing to take the coronavirus vaccine based on bodily autonomy rights, yet claiming abortion is wrong or evil. Sex being tied only to a woman's inherent value, not a man's. Story 134. When a man asks a woman out politely and she rejects him, then he leaves, he is not harassing her. When a woman asks a man out impolitely, he rejects her and she becomes upset, he is not at fault, and she is not a victim of bullying. Story 135. Criticizing radical Christianity is acceptable, but it is not acceptable to criticize radical Islam. Story 136. When men have a lot of sex, they are considered a stud, but when women have a lot of sex, they are labeled negatively. Story 137. Women want equality but do not want to be required to register for selective service. Story 138. Film producers of an upcoming live adaptation cast a dark-skinned actor to play a fair-skinned character, completely changing the visuals without a clear reason. Suddenly, it is called diversity and representation by some audiences to justify the choice as the best casting decision. Conversely, when a white actor is cast to play a dark or brown-skinned character, there is widespread outrage, with cancellations, boycotts, and accusations of whitewashing. Story 139. Men with multiple sexual partners are considered cool, while women with multiple sexual partners are labeled promiscuous. Story 140. That guy can go around hooking up with anyone who moves and no one thinks twice, but if a girl sleeps with more than one guy in a social circle, then suddenly she is considered promiscuous. Story 141. Have you ever noticed that men are more often portrayed as the comedic target? I remember watching the new Scream movie with some of my friends, and there is a scene where the main protagonist rejects a man simply for approaching her and makes a snarky comment about not wanting to date or talk to him. Story 142. A woman has a tantrum and she is fine because women are emotional. A man does it and he is considered a maniac. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.